know it's going to be a very special day for us. We've all looked forward to it for so long. And I was talking to Brother Winger back there, and he said, Brother Billy, he said, you know how long it's been since Brother Collins spoke and gave his testimony? And I said, no. And he said, it's been back in the 80s. I said, well, if it's been 20 years, I said, you and I can't wait 20 years longer to hear him again. So let's just get all out of him we can this morning. So I know that you're happy, and it's such an honor to have Brother Collins with us. And what a privilege over the years. By his stand on the Word, his stand and his love for you. Man, we're a blessed people. I don't say that just because I was given the privilege to introduce him this morning, but I love Brother Collins, and he's been a friend, and not only a friend, but a special friend. I was listening to a tape the other day, and I know he's got the speaker on back there. Don't make no difference. It's my turn this morning. He always wants to make you nervous, you know what I mean? He says, oh, Brother Billy, you can go out there and do that. You can go out there and do that. So he come out this morning, he was sitting in the back room like that, and he says, come on in. I said, no, I don't want to bother you while you're studying. He says, no, come on in, Brother Billy. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I was there and talked to Brother Winger. So I was there and talked to him. Pretty soon he came in. He said, I just need a hug. I said, okay. So I gave him another hug, and he said, I really need prayer. He said, I'm scared. Now, can you imagine him being scared? He said, I'm nervous this morning. So I felt sorry for him, but I was just chuckling inside. Now you know what it feels like. You know? And see, God called him to be a minister. The rest of us, he didn't call that away. But anyway, he's been a real friend to me. He loves you. He's been a real pastor to you. There's nothing that he wouldn't do for you. He'd walk a mile for you. He'd do anything he could to be your brother and sister. And he's proved that over the years. As I said, I was listening to the tape the other day, and Daddy said, this suit that I have on, he said, that precious Brother Collins, he said, he bought it, him and his wife and family, and give it to me. Probably, you know, I don't know, probably some of the prayer cloths that you have today probably come from that suit. Because after Daddy left, we took all of his clothes and we cut them up and sent to prayer cloths. Jesus Christ is still the same. Yes, he is. Whatever the prophet touched was blessed of the Lord. Hey, just Brother Hamby and I was just listening to a request there and said, thank you for sending me my prayer cloth. I don't know who the sister was. She broke with a broken accent. She said, I had a broken back or something. She said, but this morning I'm perfectly well. He's still the same yesterday, today. You know, Brother Branham said, the angels line these walls. What a privilege it is for you to sit here this morning. You young people, I see my grandchildren sitting here this morning. What a privilege it's going to be for you to hear a man, a real witness to the things that you've seen and heard. And as you get older and you see your grandpa getting older, and Brother Collins and I ain't getting no younger. I said, someone the other day, I said, I think Brother Collins and I has been around about as long as anybody. I said, I'm kind of like old George Johnson talking about Glenn Payne. He said, Glenn Payne has been so old. He said, when the Dead Sea was just sick, he was around. Probably I get sometime. But you know, we got something, we're closer to 20 than a lot of you. But anyway, we know this morning that you're going to be blessed. It's an honor for me to introduce to him. And I thank Brother Collins, and I just want to pay a little tribute to him. How he protected this pulpit.
Amen.
You might hear everything, but what you hear from here is thus saith the Lord. What a privilege it is for you this morning. You young people, when you listen to Brother Collins this morning, you just remember he's telling you the truth. And God bless you. Be with you. And Brother Branham said the beauty of the church. What? The beauty of the church was the character of the people. Brother Branham said, you want to know what time it is? He said, look at your watch. You want to know what time it is in God's time? He said, go over there and look at Israel. He said, you know what time it is? He said, if you want to know what time it is here, he said, drive by the tabernacle.
Yes.
Hello? He said, drive by the tabernacle and look at the people in there with their hands up worshiping the Lord. Praising Him. Everybody in love with one another. And he says, and if that's not happening, then God don't count time. So we should be the most blessed people. We should be the happiest people. When we sing, I'm standing on the promises, we shouldn't just sit on the premises. We should give Him praise. We've got something to be happy about this morning. And it's a privilege for me to introduce to you Brother Collins at this time. And I thought, what words can I say? Man, he's been a friend to me. He's been a buddy. He's been, him and his family, he's been everything to me, to my daddy, and the many years that we've been together. And you know, like I said, we're blessed people. Yeah. Brother Branham said 96 years, it is now, he said 46 years ago, 36 years ago, when Daddy was preaching this, he said, God moved the orbit. Hello. God moved the orbits and sent this gift to you.
Hallelujah.
That's been 96 years ago, and we still stand upon this promise. We stand upon this word because it's an infallible word of the living God. God don't make mistakes. Hello. God don't make mistakes. Neither does his prophets.
Amen.
Brother Branham didn't put Brother Collins here just to have somebody to put in here. He put him in here because he knew what he was doing. What a blessed people we are this morning. So give him your undivided attention. I thought, what could I say to Brother Collins? And I was listening to a tape, and this come off of there, and I don't even know whether Brother Collins even knows it, but it's on Columbia, South Carolina. Daddy was introducing Brother Collins to greet the people before he preached. Brother Branham says, I've known this brother, Brother Willard Collins from my church, a number of years now. A real precious brother, a real Christian, a real man of God. He and his wife and all of his family is under the order of God's order of the Bible. Let's stand and say, Amazing Grace. Bring us this testimony.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Think of it. We say, hey, this morning, because I know you're going to be blessed as Brother Collins comes and brings us his testimony. Once more, raise your hand to him. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
I appreciate Brother Billy. I appreciate his family. I appreciate all of Brother Branham's family. And we're just so happy to be together.
Amen.
God bless you. You may be seated. I'm going to read one verse of Scripture. It's found in Psalms, the 19th chapter, the last verse. And it says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. You know, I don't know exactly how to start, and I told Brother Billy that I'm nervous this morning because I want to tell what that I've seen and heard, and I want to be exactly on the dot. I don't want it to be wrong, because this is no hour to make mistakes. And you know, I was raised out in the country. I mean, in the country. Not on a gravel road, not on a blacktop road, but on a dirt road between creeks. in a little old house. I suppose Brother Bobby Harnett is here somewhere. If he's not, he's listening in. He made pictures of that old house. Oh, Brother Bobby, it's in worse shape now than it was then. It's fallen down. But we had no running water, no electricity. We carried our water from the spring. Someone said, "You mean to tell me you didn't have running water when you was growing up?" I said, "Oh, yes, we did. When we was running from the spring to the house." But, you know, I'm thankful. We came up during the Depression times, and it wasn't easy, but I'm thankful because I learned a lot of things, how to be able to get by without a lot of extras. But you know, the Lord has blessed us.
Amen.
And I got older and I joined the Methodist Church. Not converted, but I joined. And I began to get concerned about things being right. And when I did, I began to think, what can I do? And I surrendered my life to the Lord the very best I knew how. And there was churches there in the community. There was a Methodist church. There was a Nazarene church. And I wanted to be right. And it seemed like the Nazarene church was more spiritual than the Methodist church, not knowing they were actually both the same. But I began to pray. My mom and dad were Methodists, and I began to pray, "Lord, which one should I join?" And I got serious about it. I'd go out in the old barn and I'd talk to the Lord about it. And one night I had a dream. I know it was from Him. And I didn't see nobody, but someone talked to me. And I'll tell you the words He said. "Neither because you're married to me."
Amen.
I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea. Later, I began pastoring Methodist Church. I pastored for 4 years, not satisfied with the work. I knew there was something somewhere. I tried to search out for it. I went to Bowling Green, Kentucky for a big tent meeting. I believe it was the Jessup brothers. They were very famous at that time. And I wasn't satisfied with that. It was nice, but it wasn't what I was looking for. So I came back and I continued pastoring the Methodist Church. I pastored for 4 years. Yet knowing there was something somewhere, but had no idea where it was or what it was. But I was just waiting to find out. And one day, I heard of Brother Branham. I thought, wonder what this is. Because all the other avenues I checked out proved to be false or not satisfactory, let me put it that way. And I found out that he was going to be in Macon, Georgia 1 week before I was to be in Atlanta, Georgia for pastor school. I told my wife, I said, let's get ready and go down there. I want to hear and see what it's like. And Mike was just a little baby. That's 1955. I was 29 years old. Here I am, 70. Will be July the 27th, almost here. But anyway, I said, let's leave Michael with some friends. They'll take good care of him, so we can go down and see what this is like. Well, she hesitated but did agree. And we went one night to the service, and oh, it was a super, super night. I was so happy with it. And she was worried about Michael, and I said, I'll tell you what, we'll just call and you can talk to him and you'll feel all right then. And we did. She said, Michael has cried ever since you left. Said, I took him to the doctor, and the doctor said there's nothing wrong with him, that he's just sick for you. Well, I didn't have any choice but to bring her back home. So I did. On our way back, it was about 1 o'clock. We'd gotten back down in Kentucky, and we come upon a car that had wrecked. It was burning, and there was a mule laying in front of that car, a dead mule. What happened? The mule had gotten out and got on the road, and this car hit it. Now, you know, in Kentucky, the owner of the mule is responsible for the accident. And, you know, it was we had to wait for that car to burn before we get through. And it was strange. Nobody owned that mule. He didn't belong to nobody. Well, just the other day, this is the funniest thing. Just the other day, Billy, my son, told me, he said he had one of his horses to get out and hit by a car. And he's talking to one of the neighbors. And the neighbor said, you didn't tell nobody who that horse belonged to, did you? He said, yes, I did. He said, I've got insurance. He said, I told him. Well, he said, I didn't tell nobody who that mule belonged to. I thought that was the funniest thing after almost 40 years. Now we know. Anyway, you know what I did? I got ready after I brought her home, turned around, and went back to Macon, Georgia. Now, we didn't have any money hardly, but I cut out a little army cot so I could get it in the back of a little old car or a little old truck that I had. It was just like the one Brother Branham had the writings on it and everything. Yeah, and I took that army cot and cut it down enough that I could get it in there, and that was my place to stay. So I went right back to the meeting, and I thought, this is something. Now, if this is the truth, this is really something, because I'd never seen anything like that in my whole life. But while I was there, one night, after I got back down there was two ladies sitting close to me. And Brother Branham had the prayer line and was praying for a lady from Augusta, Georgia. Anyway, he said to her, told her what's wrong with her, how many surgeries she had had, none of them a success. But he said, the Lord Jesus makes you well. Said, your name is so-and-so, your house number is so-and-so, and you're from Augusta, Georgia. These two ladies close to me said, he missed it that time. Well, just prior to that, he said, if I ever tell you anything wrong, don't ever believe anything else I say.
You cover church.
Because God don't make no mistakes. And if it's of God, it has to be right.
Amen.
Now I'm going to stop here and say something. There is no flaws in this message.
Amen.
There's no mistakes in this message.
Amen.
I'm here to tell you, after following this message all these years, there's no error in it.
Amen.
It's every word the gospel truth.
Amen.
Well, they said he made a mistake that time. I thought, now wait a minute. He said, if it be of God, it ain't no mistake.
Amen.
I had to check it out. I played Mr. District Attorney there for a little while. I got to the bottom of it. 2 days prior to this, she had moved to that new address, and they didn't know it yet. It was news to them. I thought, my. Well, I'd get there early, and I'd watch the people. I wanted to hear Brother Branham so bad. I wanted to get as close as I could get. And the boys were making tapes. They were seated in folding chairs around in front of where Brother Branham was speaking at. It was in a football field. And I want to tell you, though, I was sitting there when I saw Brother Banks Woods drive out there with Brother Branham. He was in a Buick car. Boy, it was just as shiny as it could be. And Brother Branham got out and walked up on that platform. When I saw that man walking up there, I knew that was it. It had to be. Well, after I saw these boys making tapes, I found out that it was the truth. There was no question there. And I came and had me a folding chair too. So I came and joined these boys. I didn't know them, but I wanted to get as close as I could. And I just got right in with them. I was one of them. Right in front of Brother Branham, watching him preach and minister. Oh my. I'd get there early and look the situation over. It didn't look like a revival meeting as in a football field. It looked like where there'd been a storm or something gone through and people were crippled. They were sick. They were on stretchers. They were in wheelchairs. They were on cots. There was waterhead babies. I never saw the like. I remember Brother Branham praying for them, and he would tell the mother, he'd say, you put a string around that baby's head tonight. Tie a knot in it. And then in the morning, you check and see how much it's gone down. And it was tremendous, the testimonies that were coming back. And I thought, my, what a situation. What a scene. I met Brother and Sister Woods, Brother Banks and his wife, there at the meeting. They had a little stand there, had some tapes and books and so forth. And I'm going to tell you, I've always loved Brother Banks Woods. He's a wonderful fellow. He's gone on to be with the Lord now. But I'll say that his life helped me to see the reality of what this message was. He was so sweet and kind, helpful, done everything. I got to meet him and talk with him. And I thought, if that's what this message does to people, I want it.
Amen.
Because he was precious. And I got to talk with him and enjoyed him so much. But you know, I was sick too. I was very sick. Glasgow, Kentucky has my x-rays, I suppose, till this day. My stomach was in such shape that if I applied for insurance, they'd check back with Glasgow Hospital and turn me down. I had to eat special foods. My wife would fix them for me, and I couldn't eat normal at all. And I was very sick. And I got up here and I thought, boy, I'd sure like to be in that prayer line. But you know, I was a little late. Everybody else did too. They wanted in, so there just wasn't enough cards to go around. Now, Brother Billy was giving out the cards. That's the first time I ever saw Brother Billy. And you know, I just marveled at him. Just a gentleman all the way, giving out those prayer cards. And I said to him, I said, I'd like to have a prayer card. He said, I haven't got any more. He said, I can mark you down with somebody else or something like that, but of course, I never got in the prayer line. But I kept believing that there was something beyond my reach that was going on. And Brother Branham, he was preaching, and I brought my folding chair up. Well, when he'd get on preaching that night especially, he left the platform and went out among the people. He'd pray for one over here on a stretcher, a wheelchair, a cot, you know, and he walked around behind where the boys was making tapes. And he come to where I was, and he stopped, laid his hand on my shoulder, said, Father, he's sick too. He went back up on the platform. He said, you probably couldn't see it. But he said, the angel of the Lord led me to every person I went to when I left the platform. You know what I did? I went back to my little truck that night. I went over to the hamburger joint. Hadn't eaten one for years. And I got me a big hamburger with an onion on it. And I ate it. And I want you to know, I've been eating ever since. 1955. That was it. It was all over. And I was one of the happiest guys you ever saw. I was really thrilled because of what had happened. And I went back to my truck that night, and I was just thrilled to death. I'd never seen them. I didn't know it was possible. I didn't know the Lord still had prophets among us. I didn't know that He could even do that.
Think of it.
But He did. And I sat down on the side of a little cot, and I was just thanking the Lord. I thought, boy, this is precious. This is wonderful. I'm just thrilled to death. And I didn't see nobody. But there was a voice. Now, I had to wear glasses then. I couldn't read without. I couldn't drive without. I couldn't read without. I had to wear them for a good while. And a voice that said to me, you think your stomach's healed, huh? I said, yeah. I was able to eat that hamburger and no ill effects at all. I think it's all over. I talked back to it, but I didn't see nothing. He said, well, what about your glasses? That's just the way the old enemy does it.
Absolutely.
If he can't get you with one thing, he'll try something else. He said, what about your glasses? I thought, yeah, you're right. I just pulled them out and laid them down and said, I won't need them no more. Well, now this wasn't instant. This is over a period of time. When I drove back from Macon to Atlanta, it was hard for me to see, but I didn't wear no glasses.
Amen.
I made it. Then it come time for me to get my new driver's license, and I went in and take the test. And the first year, I think they said, you're okay at 2030, something like that. And the next year, it was 2020. The Lord's so good to us.
Amen.
My life was changed at that time. And it's never been the same since.
Amen.
I made up my mind while I was there, I was going to leave the Methodist Church. Because I'd found what I was looking for. Someone said to me, you found something better than what you had? I said, yes, I did. Well, suppose you'd find something better than what you've got now. I said, This is what I've been looking for. My shopping days are over. This is it. I still feel the same way. Well, I got back from Atlanta, and I wanted to meet Brother Branham, but I didn't go to his house. I knew Brother Willard and his wife. They were so good to us, Brother and Sister Willard. I'll never forget it. They treated us so kind. And I told my wife, I said, let's go and see Brother and Sister Willard. I just was hungry to get up here. And I did, and Brother Willard said, how would you like to go and visit Brother Branham? Or go and see Brother Banks, he said. I said, oh, I would love it. Because I thought Brother Banks was really a wonderful fellow. He said, all right. So he drove me over to their house. And Brother Banks was mowing his yard. He was just going it, you know. And I met him and greeted him and told him how I appreciated him and how I was so happy to meet him. And I looked, and there was another fellow coming around behind him mowing. This fellow had his shirt off, big balls of sweat standing out on him, mowing the yard. It was Brother Branham. Was I thrilled? My heart jumped. Never had met him before. I just seen him there in Macon. And he come around, and his motor was still running, and Brother Banks says, Brother Billy, this is that preacher that was healed in Macon. Brother Brown just reached over and cut his mower off, said, and put his hand out, said, and this is that preacher. I said, yes, sir, but I'm leaving the Methodist Church. He acted as though he was surprised. He said, you are? I said, yes, sir. He said, all right, I'll tell you how to do it. And you know, I expected one of those long, drawn-out deals, you know. He said, as peaceable as possible.
Right.
And you know what? I found that works for everything. But the marvelous part of it was how peaceful it went. Now, at that time, they couldn't have another pastor until September. They had the Methodist Church has a way of doing it. It's the same as all the rest of them, but they kind of do it undercover, you know. They have what they call a one-year conference. And at the conference, they appoint the ministers to the church they're to go to. But the way they do this, there's a delegate from each church. The delegate brings word from the church whether they want that pastor back or not. And if they don't want him, he'll shift them around and put them someplace else, you know. And that's the way they do it. So I had to get word to them that I wasn't going to pastor the church any longer, but the district superintendent, he was a very nice old fellow, and I called him and made an appointment with him. He lived in Louisville, and I was pastoring the church in Wolf Creek, Kentucky. Now, that's down the river, probably 70 miles from here. And I called, made an appointment, and I got with him. I come to meet him one night. He said, what's the problem? I said, I just wanted to let you know. I thought I could get by like this, you know. I didn't know anything, but I said, I just wanted to let you know when the conference meets this year, don't send me to another work. He said, how come? I said, well, there are just some things the Methodist Church stands for that I just can't believe. He said, for instance, what? And I felt no higher than that standing before him. And I didn't know anything except what little I'd learned down there. And I said, well, one thing is water baptism. The Methodist Church baptizes Trinitarian. And I said, that's one thing. He said, well, you go back where you were. Said, them folks want you back. Said, you go back for another year. You teach anything you want to, baptize any way you want to, and stay another year. No, that won't work. Because there are going to be some of the people that will go one way and some another, tear the church up. I said, I can't do that. But I said, I will do this. I won't tear the church up. Because remember, Brother Branham said, as peaceful as possible. I said, I will stay until time for the next pastor, and I won't tear the church up, because I didn't want to leave them without a pastor for funerals and whatever more, that was needed. And I remember the words that he used when I left. He walked me to the door, put his hand on my shoulder. He said, young man, I was 29 years old then. He said, if Martin Luther had never seen anything besides Catholicism, we'd all be Catholic today. And that's the way we parted. That's how smooth it was. Then we got ready to move. One of the members of the church, real nice old fella, he said, I want to go with you as far as I can. We had to cross the ferry in Brandenburg. There's no bridge there then. He said, it's all right if I go with you. I'll drive my car and I want to go. I said, yeah, that'd be fine. He followed along. We came to the ferry. He got with the ferryman. He said, I'd like to just ride across if you'll bring me back, because I want to go with them as far as I can. I said, sure. He said, sure, that's fine. He did. When the old fellow died, they called me to come back down there and have his funeral. Mr. Gleason, nice old gentleman. Well, I've been so wrong. You imagine how you'd feel. I baptized wrong. I baptized in the Ohio River. Trinitarian. And then to find that that was so wrong, it really astounded me. I remember on one occasion, I was baptizing in the river, and the fellow says, what I would always do is take me a stick out in the river and kind of feel my way, because I didn't want to step off over my head, And he said, there's no need to check this one. He said, it's a big flat rock. He said, I know how it is. He said, just walk out there and baptize. I said, okay. Well, I did. And I was baptizing a real fat lady. Heavy, stout. And I know, as you layer back, you'll step back a step or two. Okay? I did. And when I did, I stepped off. There was nothing under me. If she had ever known that, we'd both drowned. But there was enough flotation in her body that I was able to get my feet back on the rock. But I've been so wrong, that I thought, well, it's time for me to get out of the ministry. That's all there is to it. And I'm going to do it. I made up my mind. I'm going to get out. That's all. Okay. I left the church, came up here. And listen, if you ever found where a preacher had a hard time getting a job, that was it. What's your resume look like? Where'd you work before? You know, all those things. Well, the only place I could find work at was at Vissings Buick. It's Vissings Dodge now, but it was Buick then. And the mayor, Rich Vissing, worked there. He was over the body shop. And Bill, his brother, was the service manager. Bud was the service manager. Bill was the owner, I think. And they gave me a job. But the job they gave me was on commission. And I was young. And they had old men been there for years that really knew what they were doing. And naturally, they got the best work, and I understood that. I got what was left over, and that was good. But some weeks, I made $30-some. I was just trying to get my feet on the ground. It was a task to be able to do it. But we made it. We got by. Wife, 4 children. And I was working up there. And one day, Brother Branham and Brother Banks drove up there in a big Cadillac. Brother Branham said, I want to show you the Cadillac they gave me. And he had, now, show you the humility of that man of God. He had put in the paper an apology for driving a Cadillac. I thought, I've never seen anything like that before. And he said, I'll tell you why. Because when I go down south among those poor people, can't afford anything, and I pull up in a Cadillac, he said, I feel bad, even though it was given to them and everything. But they brought it over there to show me the Cadillac, raised the hood. It had 2 4-barrel carburetors on it. You remember that, brother? All right. It had 2 4-barrel carburetors on it, and it was a nice car. Now, I'll tell you who can tell you a lot about that Cadillac too. That's Brother Hickerson. Him and me kept that fella going for years. He put over 100,000 miles on it. We done about everything you can think of to that car. I did one job that whoever's got it now could run into some problems. The water pump went bad. And I was going to replace the water pump. Well, you know, the bolts that holds the water pump on screws in the block. Well, those threads had eaten up in the block. And that bolt would not tighten up. Well, it had to be tightened up or the water would leak. So I'll tell you what I did. Instead of going to the extreme of putting another block on it, I pulled the water pump back off. I drilled that hole to the next size bolt, cut new threads in it, then I drilled a bigger hole in the water pump and screwed that thing on, and so far as I know, it's still running that way. Now, if somebody buys a water pump, they're going to swear they got the wrong pump. But anyway, I worked there for a good long while, and I had the honor of working on Brother Branham's car there for my first time. He had a, I believe it was a 1953 Pontiac Straight 8, I believe it was, and had to have a valve job. He brought it over there and he told Vissings, he said, I want Brother Collins to do this valve job for me. And you'll never know how thrilled I was. You'll never know. Working on the prophet's car. I did the very best job that I could possibly do. I went to every detail. I went and checked out the parts and everything. And when I got through, now see, they gave me 45% of the labor. And I went back and I said, how much the labor run on this? And they told me. I said, all right, let me pay you your part of the labor, and I want to pay for the parts, because when he comes, I don't want him to have to pay anything. They let me do it. And I'll stop to tell you this. The Lord has blessed us. We've got things better than we ever had. We've got food to eat, we've got clothes to wear, a good car to drive, a good home to live in. You know why I think we've got it? Because I did everything I could for the man of God. I believe that's the reason. I believe that's the only reason, because things that I was able to accomplish, I'm not smart. I couldn't have done that. But the Lord took care of it. I could tell you things that was utterly impossible for me, but the Lord worked it out. Anyway, I enjoyed working at Vissing's. Rich Vissing was the nicest fellow. He was over the body shop, and he treated me with respect in every way. Many of you remember Rich here as the mayor. And he came back to my workbench one day and started talking. And he found out that I was coming to the tabernacle to hear Brother Branham. And he said, and him being Catholic, he said, you know, he said, I was operating a record one time. He said, I got tangled on that thing, it throwed me up in the air, and I come down on my back on the blacktop road. He said, it damaged my back, something terrible, I could hardly get around. But he said, Brother Branham prayed for me, and the Lord healed me.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
Let me tell you what else he did. I hope I'm not taking too much time. I'm trying to go into every detail, because I may never get the opportunity to do this again. There was some outfit up here in Ohio, what Brother Billy, where they was trying to condemn the Branham Tabernacle as a cult. You weren't with me up there, did you? And I thought we'd better go up and see what was going on. And I went to Rich Vissing. I said, would you write me a letter of your opinion of the Branham Tabernacle? He said, sure, I'll be glad to. He wrote the nicest letter. I've still got a copy of it. I went to Mr. Coots. I said, he's a Catholic too. I said, Mr. Coots, would you write me a letter of your opinion of the Branham Tabernacle? He said, I'll be glad to. He wrote me another nice letter. Well, Brother Billy went with me up there, and we went to Ohio. We got there, and they was fixing to condemn us something terrible, and the prosecuting attorney said to me, he said, are you folks a cult? Well, I said, I reckon not. No law but love, no creed but Christ, no book but the Bible. He said, well, that don't sound so bad. And he told me what that preacher was doing up there was supposed to have been sent there from the tabernacle and a part of the tabernacle. I said, look, if I lived here, I'd be with you, because that preacher's wrong. And I said, I've got 2 letters here, the 2 of the most prominent men of Jeffersonville. Would you like to see them? He said, yes. I handed them to him. He read them. He said, can I copy them? I said, sure. He went back in the back, copied them, come back out. Held them up before the court, and he said, that's all the proof I need. The case is over. And he went out and did it. So the Lord does everything just right if we let him go ahead.
Amen.
Well, we had to live in Charleston. We couldn't live in Jeff, New Albany, or Clarksville, because we had 4 children. And at that time, you just couldn't rent a place with 4 children. And we had to go to Charlestown to live. And the only place we could get was where they built for the powder plant workers. And they, in the unit we was in, they had 3 families in one unit. We was in the middle unit. And it's not a real good way to live, because you're 4 inches from the neighbor. And our neighbor drank a lot. He'd come in drunk as a skunk. And him and his wife, he'd tell her he's going to kill her and all this, that, and the other. And, had us scared to death. We could hear him through the wall, and thought, oh my, he's going to kill her. Well, hear the door slam, think, well, he probably did. Look out the window, and the poor old woman would be going to the coal bucket to get another bucket of coal. One day, he came in, and she was taking the wax off the road, and she had, I don't know, whatever they put on the road to take the wax off. I don't know whether it's ammonia. Bleach, all right, it's bleach. And she had it all saturated good. Well, he went with a suit and tie on. I mean, he really dressed up, He come walking in there all looped up, stepped in that and fell flat. I might have changed the color of his suit a little bit. But anyway, we lived in Charleston in those powder plant worker units. And I finally traded for a house trailer. Now this trailer was 37.5 feet long and 8 foot wide. That's small. But we lived in it. There was 4 children, wife and me. We made it. But would you believe the prophet of God? Listen, he could have went with kings and monarchs all over the world. But you know what? He humbled himself to come to our place in that little trailer. And he'd supper with us, he and his wife and Sister Meade. They came. My wife done everything she could do. Of course, she had to serve the supper out on a picnic table because there's not room in that little trailer. And she's a little bit on the nervous side, too. She's kind of like I am this morning a lot of the time. But anyway, she had done everything she could to make this supper ready, make it good. And Brother Banks and his wife, Sister Meade, Brother and Sister Woods came. And everybody got seated at the table, and Brother Branham offered thanks. And he got through offering thanks. Why? He looked up at her and he said, "Sister, there's only one thing missing." Oh, what's missing? What did I do? What didn't I do? She said, "What, Brother Branham?" He said, "The honeymoon salad, just let us alone." He had a way about him. I'm going to tell you what he'd do. I don't care how honorary, low you was. When he talked to you, he would make you to step ahead of him. That's right. He would humble himself that much. Listen, when he would come to see us, there would be the sweetest spirit. And that spirit would stay around for several days. Just words. The dictionary don't have words sufficient to describe that man. Somebody said, "Well, you brag too much on him." No. It would be impossible because he was God's chosen man for this age.
Amen.
And did you know the Bible said that John the Baptist was more than a prophet?
Amen.
You know that?
Amen.
Jesus said, "Not a greater than John the Baptist ever born." Remember that? And he was the forerunner of the first coming of Christ. And we don't have a record where he ever performed one miracle. Not one. But look, Brother Branham's the forerunner of the second coming. That's what the angel said down here on the river. I believe every word of it.
Amen.
And that makes him also a messenger of the covenant. God chose him, and he certainly used him. He was and is a man of God. Amen. All right. After this, one day, Brother Branham said, would you pray over becoming a deacon of the church? And I'll tell you, if I ever felt little, that was the time. No higher than that. I thought, me, a deacon of the Branham Tabernacle? He said, you pray about it. Well, later he came back. He said, how do you feel about being a deacon? I said, Brother Branham, if you think that's what I ought to do, I'll try, but I feel so unworthy. He said, I think that's what you ought to do. I said, okay, I'll try. Well, it was put before the board here as a vote, me being a deacon, and I thought, you know, these things that the Lord's doing is just so outstanding that I don't feel worthy in any capability of being a deacon. But to my surprise, when I was voted in, I copied this off of the message so I could share it with you. Listen, all I knew that he asked me to be a deacon. And then when I was voted in, here's what he said. Also, we have found by the vote of the board that Brother Collins also has been found an honorable and just man. Being a minister himself, therefore, we would ask him to come to be a deacon of the church, and not only deacon, but an associate to Brother Neville, and perhaps to a Sunday school class, or to take the place of Brother Neville, or whatever is being called on, he is to be an associate to Brother Neville. That's Brother Collins. Well, you don't know how shocked I was when he said that. I thought, oh my. You just imagine, put yourself in that condition. Me trying to get out of the ministry and here placed right back into it. I thought, I don't know. I just don't know what's coming out of all of this. But anyway, I was placed in as a deacon. You know, one day Brother Branham came over and he said, I'm going down to pray for Garnet Peak. Now that's Sister Shirley Noel's husband's brother, half-brother, I believe. But anyway, I'm going down to pray for Garnet Peak, 17 years old, and he had polio. And he couldn't live without arm, lung, or a rocking bed. Had to be in one or the other to be able to breathe. And he said, I'm going down to pray for him. Well, when he got there, something had happened, and he said to Garnet, Garnet, you want to know why that light came in the room? There was a light came in the room before Brother Branham got there. He said, you want to know why that light came in the room? And Garnet said, yes. Brother Branham said, that was me coming to pray for you. Now, you can take these things however you see fit. I'm just telling exactly what he said to me.
Amen.
Okay. Then he came over one day and he said, there's a brother that's sick. He's got cancer in the hospital. And said, would you go with me to pray for him? I said, sure. I went with him, went to the hospital. I believe it was, I'm not for sure, Baptist or Veterans or something. Brother Branham offered the sweetest prayer for him. But you know what? He went on and died anyway. And one day, Brother Branham was talking about it. Now, I'll share some of this with you. There's some things I cannot tell. but I'm going to share what I can. Brother Branham said, I'm not going to call the brother's name, but Brother Branham said, Brother so-and-so said he died, and, you know, and I said, yes, sir. He said, you know why he died? And I said, no, I don't have no idea. He said, because his wife didn't treat him right. And the Lord just took him home to get him out of it. Isn't that deep? I've never heard anything like that before. Okay, then I wasn't making very much money where I was working, so I started working at a service station there in Charlestown. A couple of boys, one of them lived next door to me. They opened a service station, said they would give me $2, no, let's see, $75 a week. Had to work on Saturday to do their mechanical work. So I started working for them there, and when I wasn't doing mechanical work, I'd go out to wait on the pumps. And this taxi drove up at the pumps, and I went out to wait on him. And the old gentleman from the church I used to pastor down in Kentucky broke down and started crying. He was in the taxi. He said, I was looking for you. I had no idea you were here. He said, I was going to inquire here if anyone knew where you were. I'd heard you was in Charleston. And I went out to wait on him. He just started off. He said, my daughter is real sick and in the hospital. I want you to come pray for her. I went to the boss and I told him what happened. He said, get her in, go on with him. I went and had a prayer with her. She got well. He was a nice old gentleman. He'd been in the service. And naturally, there was casualties. You know how it is. He said, you know what? Every night when I first go to sleep, I live that thing over. He said, it haunts me every night. Not knowing what Brother Branham said. Brother Arnett from Columbia, South Carolina. Precious brother, gone on to be with the Lord now. See, he was in the service, and those things happened to him. He got an interview with Brother Branham, and Brother Arnett told me, he said, Brother Branham told me, he said, Brother Arnett, you won't be held accountable for those things because you didn't do it because you wanted to. You did it because you was forced to. He said, that won't go to your account at all. I thought, isn't that precious? How the Lord works everything out. All right. I worked this service station, several things I could go into there, but I won't. But the Lord helped us financially in every way, even beyond thought, while I worked there. And then, as I was placed in as deacon, and I didn't know what to do or how to do, but I did everything I knew. While I was deacon, I'm going to tell this. I know Brother Carl Wheeler won't mind. He was a precious brother. He was a deacon too. He lives in Tucson now. Calls me every once in a while on the phone. He's a little bit older than I am. I didn't know anyone was, but he is. But there was two boys giving all kinds of trouble. You remember those two boys? All kinds of trouble. And they said, you deacons going to have to talk to them boys. We got back here in this back room, and we was trying to reason with them, just kind of slow down a little bit, and one of them jumped up. Just jumped up. He said, just throw us out. Throw us out, he said. Brother Wheeler used to be a kind of a rough guy, before he was converted. And he was able to do it, He was sitting there and looked just as serious. And the guy said, throw us out. Brother Wheeler patted him on the shoulder and said, brother, you're tempting me. But anyway, the Lord took care of it. But Brother Brown was preaching. It was marvelous. I come here to hear Brother Branham. That's what I come for. And my teeth were bad. I went off to dental school. I said, I wonder if I get you fellas to pull my teeth. They're all bad. They said, well, let's check them first. I said, okay. So they did. They went to work on them. And they said, no, said, we can fix your teeth up where they'll last you another 7 years. Well, here I am, 79 years old, and I still got them. But anyway, I thought, 7 years. I won't need my teeth no 7 years. Because I was looking for the Lord to come any day. And you know what? I'm still here. Yeah. Well, Vissings called me back to work for them. It's a long story how it happened, but they wanted me back. I went back to Vissings from the station. And they said, we'll give you $2 an hour. So I went back and worked for them. And I did why worked there a while, and Brother Hickerson got me a job at Moorhead Chevrolet in Crestwood, Kentucky. So we moved a little trailer over there. And after we got there, hadn't worked there very long at Moorhead's until Brother Branham wanted me to go squirrel hunting with him. And I wanted to go so bad, but now just as starting a new job, I didn't know how it was going to work out. So Brother Banks said, can you go? And I said, well, I want to. So I went to my boss. I said, I've got 2 real good friends want me to go squirreling with them. Is there any possible way I could do it? He said, oh yeah. I said, just find out when and how long. I did. He said, go ahead, go ahead. Well, I went, and I thought, boy, this is wonderful. And I wasn't expecting one thing. I thought, this is wonderful that I just started the job and he would let me go squirreling, you know. I think, well, honey, a couple of weeks. Came back, and you know what? He had my paycheck waiting for me just like I've been working on. I couldn't get over that. Well, you don't hardly meet people like that. But he was so good to me there that I really appreciated that. Well, tell you a few things happened while we were squirreling. Brother Branham would wake us up, Brother Banks and me. And you know, it just seemed like that you just got laid down when Brother Branham hollered, it's time to get up. You would do that. And he come and said, it's time to get going, you know. Okay. Well, I got up, and he had already got dressed and got out. So I was getting dressed, and I hunted everywhere for my sock. One sock was missing. I couldn't find that thing nowhere. And he said, he come back to the door and said, you about ready to go? I said, Brother Branham, can't find my sock. He come in and helped me hunt, and he couldn't find it either. And he said, oh well. I said, I've got an extra, and said, take mine. I said, okay. In a minute, I'm going to tell you what happened with some of the socks. But anyway, he said, I said, okay. So I put his sock on, and we had to go down through a meadow that growed up, and it was heavy dew, and we got wet to our waist. But to watch Brother Branham's, he went down through there before the sun rose. He'd go down through there with one hand up, singing to the top of his voice. It'll be light in the evening time. The path to glory we shall surely find. You know, and happy as he could be. Well, when we got through, we would go into Camelville and eat our breakfast. And we'd come back and get our wet clothes off and get dry clothes on. And Brother Branham, he would say to me, say, you take that holler, and Banks, you take that one, and I'll get the next one. We'd go up those hollers. And I'm going to tell you what, Brother Banks and me did a whole lot. We'd kind of hurry up the top and meet up there and sit there and talk about the tent. Brother Branham was so enthused about the tent. He was talking about it, and we'd talk about it, you know, and it was just just a lovely time. And Brother Branham got back and changed clothes before I did. And I walked in to change clothes in to get ready to go eat. And when I did, I looked over in the corner, and there lay my sock. I thought, boy, I was sleeper than I thought it was. There's my sock. Well, Brother Branham was outside, so I went to the door after I got dressed, and I said, Brother Branham, I found my long-lost sock. But I said, it's sopping wet. He said, yeah. I said, I had it on. Yeah, I had it on. Well, we went in to eat breakfast. The waitress came back to wait on us, brought the water, menus. Brother Branham said, that lady is Methodist. Well, he'd never seen her before. I said, yes, sir. Well, she come back to take her order. Brother Branham said, what church you belong to? She said, Methodist. Oh, yeah. Well, now I'm going to tell you, one of the hardest jobs I ever had was to get the check. Now, they call it a check. I've checked everywhere to find out why they call a check something you have to pay. I said, I thought the check's what you pay with. But anyhow, they called them a check. They brought it to the table. The hardest thing I've had to deal with was get that away from Brother Branham. You know, get it first. Amen. You know what? I managed to get it that time. All right. He went with me. Brother Banks walked out and was walking up the sidewalk. Brother Branham went with me to the cashier. And the cashier used to attend the Methodist church I pastored. And he recognized me. He says, Brother Collins, are you still preaching? Well, I was getting out of it, you know. And I said, well, occasionally. But I just left it like that. He said, oh, okay. I paid it. Brother Branham started to walk out. He said, Brother Collins, you know when that fellow asked you if you were still preaching? I said, yes, sir. He said, you know that funny feeling you had in your heart? I said, yes, sir.
Think of it.
He said, that means you should still be preaching. That was the hardest lick Brother Branham ever hit me. I didn't want to. I thought, no. Well, he started then. Brother Billy, he said, how about you speaking Sunday morning? I said, thank you, Brother Branham. You're the kindest fellow I ever saw. And I'd get by with it, you know, and he'd bring it up again. And I'd do it again. Well, we was in his station wagon, so he brought me back by home. He stopped. He said, Brother Collins, would you do something for me? I said, I sure would, Brother Branham. I'd do anything on earth for you. He said, all right, you pray about speaking Sunday morning and give me a call. If it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't be here now. The Lord has done it. I haven't. It's been Him all the way. When I come here, there was just a handful of people coming to church. Just a handful. But the Lord has done it. I didn't do nothing. All I've done is just tried to hold the Word before the people. The pure Word. Not mix nothing with it. That's all. One brother asked me, said, I'm going to start a church. Said, I'd like to know how to hold the people. Well, I said, it's simple. He said, well, how? I said, well, they're sheep. And all you do is give them sheep food and they'll keep coming back. Amen. And that's the truth. I know that's right.
Yes.
Well, Brother Branham asked me later, wanted to go down to my dad's squirrel hunt. Called me and said, let's go to your dad's and go squirrel hunting. I said, okay. He said, I'll be by and pick you up. And we'll go down there and we'll hunt one day and stay all night and hunt the next day. And I said, all right. Him and Brother Banks And they came, and we went down there. Now, I tried to get my dad, I just tried to get him interested in the message every way I do. My dad was a good man, but he didn't take interest in the message. He was a Methodist. He was on the board. He was a faithful member, baptized Trinitarian. And when Brother Branham said, we'll go to your dad's squirrel hunting, I thought, this is when my dad will receive it. Sure as the world. We went. My dad, Brother Branham didn't mention nothing to him, nothing about baptism, nothing. But they had a big time together. And my dad had a sore leg for years, and Brother Branham prayed for him, and the leg got well. But nothing is said. And you know, it really bothered me. I thought, I wonder why. I wonder why. And the best I recall, I was in the pool baptizing an old gentleman, an old gray-haired man, and I was thinking, how I wish that was my dad. And Brother Branham walked by, and he was leaving, and next time I saw him, he says, don't you worry about your dad. Said, he's all right. Now, that's the biggest shock I ever got. How can he be all right, baptized Trinitarian, in the Methodist Church, staying with the Methodist Church, and all this here, you know. He said, now here's what it is. He said, he won't come up with this generation of people. Said, he's with John Wesley's people. He'll come with that group. But he's all right. I thought, isn't that marvelous? See, the Lord has it all set right. If we just don't get in the road, that's all. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I told you he went down and prayed for Garnet Peak, and he died. Also, he prayed for this gentleman I talked about, dying of cancer, that his wife mistreated. And he began to tell me about Garnet Peak when he went down to have the funeral. Him and Brother and Sister Woods, and they came back by the station. He stopped and said, I went down and had Garnet's funeral today. I said, yes, sir. He said, you know how Garnet had to die? I said, no. He said, well, I'll tell you. Now, he's 17 years old, died from polio. He said, here's what it was. He said he was such a handsome young man. If he had lived, he'd have gotten in real trouble. But the Lord just bypassed all that and took him home. You know, this thing's deeper than we think. Mm-hmm. He works everything out just right. Another time, Brother Branham was talking to me, and he said, Brother Evans's boy had a wreck. Said he killed him. And he said, Brother Evans called me and said, Brother Branham, my boy has been killed. And Brother Branham said, Brother Evans, don't do anything to him till I go in the mountains and pray. Now, I want to tell you something. This is not playing church.
Right.
This is for you.
Amen.
Brother Branham said, I went and prayed. Said, I come back and called Brother Evans. Said, Brother Evans, I found Jimmy. Said, I searched through the regions. Now, where's the regions at? I don't know. And he said, I finally found Jimmy, and he is in the presence of God. He said, but what happened to Jimmy? He got away from the Lord. Started drinking a little bit. And the Lord said, Jimmy, you better come back. You better come back. But said Jimmy wouldn't hear it. He wouldn't do it. And he said, what happened? Him and this boy put in 13 cents worth of gas. Now, I'm going to tell you what, that wouldn't even be a smell today. You'd never know his gas. But put in 13 cents worth of gas and went out on the road and said they were driving up a hill. And Brother Branham, evidently the Lord showed him the whole thing. And said they went to pass a vehicle on this hill, and they was doing 70 miles an hour. And they met a big truck coming over the hill head on. And Brother Evans had heard the sirens going off, and him and Sister Evans went up there, and he said they were standing there and said they got the boys out, and someone walked up to Brother Evans, said, Brother Evans, you know who that boy is? He said, no. He said, that's your boy. He said, Brother Branham said, Brother Welsh, I got hold of Jimmy. And said, Jimmy don't want to come back. Brother Evans said, if he don't want to come back, I don't want him to. Brother Branham said, get him ready to bury him. They did. But you know what? That's the story of every person that's gone beyond the curtain. They don't want to come back.
Right.
Even Brother Branham. He said, do I have to go back? Go back to that body again? I was privileged to talk to a man that hemorrhaged to death. His wife, he had TB. A hole in his lung the size of a silver dollar. And he hemorrhaged to death. His wife called Brother Branham and said, Brother Branham, I want you to come. Brother Branham said, I went to comfort her, not thinking of anything else. But he said, when I got there, he said, the angel of the Lord appeared. And when he did, he said, I put everybody out of the room. Remember Elijah and Elisha? And he said, I waited for the vision. And when it broke, he said, I got up on the bed. Now, the blood and everything's still all over the bed where you'd hemorrhaged to death. Brother Branham said, I got up on the bed, according to the vision, putting my mouth against his mouth. Man, better know what he's doing, hadn't he? And I breathed my breath into his lungs as life came back into him. I had the privilege of talking with him after that. And him with tears in his eyes. He said, I don't know who all I met, but he said, I met the finest people, the most lovely place. And he said, I was so happy. And he said, someone came to me and said, you're going to have to go back to earth for a little while. He said, do I have to? And they said, yes. He said, the next thing I knew, I was back in my body. Listen, this thing is real. I want to tell you this, and you can take it however you see fit, but I feel led to tell you. Brother Branham was in meetings in Bloomington, Illinois. And after the meetings, he came where I worked. He said, get in, I want to talk to you. I said, okay, I got in, sat down. He said, I just had those meetings in Bloomington, Illinois, that college town. And said, I'm in an altar shape. I said, what's the matter with you? He said, there was those college kids sat there and watched that. And said, they looked at it and said, that is a high form of spiritualism. Brother Branham said that would make me a devil. And he called some names and said others saw the very same thing. He said it was a wonderful meeting. Secrets of the hearts revealed, people healed, everything. In fact, we went up for that meeting. I think my brother Clyde went up with us. But anyway, he said this other group saw the very same thing, and they said that's Jesus Christ in person. Now, he said they're both wrong. He said that would make me the Antichrist. So they're wrong. But, now, here's the part. But, he said, there's only the thickness of a razor's edge between them and the truth. Marvelous. Marvelous. The wonderful word of the Lord. And the Lord's been so good to us, wife and me, all the way. We had a little boy named Michael. We have a little boy named Michael. He's not so little no more. Him and Brother Joe's about the same age. But he was, I believe, 9 years old. And he got real sick. Real sick. And we didn't know what was wrong with him. We thought he had the flu or something. He'd wake up in the night screaming and holding his chest. And we took him to the doctor. The doctor said, we'll just have to find out. So he run all his tests and everything. Oh my. He's got a heart condition, rheumatic carditis of the heart. He pulled him out of school and put him to bed to die. It's exactly what he did. Well, Brother Branham was coming back here to preach the seals. We heard that he was coming. We went to the doctor and said, do you think Michael will be able for us to take him with us to church? He said, you don't realize how sick that boy is. He said, no. If you want to go to church, y'all get somebody to stay with him. But don't try to take him. But we talked it over, and we decided we'd take him anyway. So we brought him. Brother Branham found out we was here with Michael. And he sent word to me to have him in this room when he got through preaching. We did. Walked through that door. He looked at his wife and he said, y'all believe me? He said, sure do, Brother Branham. He turned to Michael. He said, you're going to be all right, and Joe's going to come play with you.
Right.
They played together a lot.
Right.
Brother Branham would bring his kids over there, and Michael and Joe would get under that trailer, make their roads and run their little old cars. You know how they do it. They played together a lot. And he said, and Joe will come play with you. We got him ready to put him back in school the next morning. No, Monday morning. And we did. I said, you better call the doctor. She called and told him. He couldn't believe it. You know, it's just too unreasonable, you know. He said, bring him back and let me examine. And said, won't that be more proof of the supernatural? She turned to me and said, what about it? I said, take him on. That'd be fine, you know. So she took him. He took all his tests and everything just as usual. And he did why he said, now this will have to go at the laboratory, not all this, that, and the other. And said, I'll have the results at a certain time. And said, you called me back. She did. And you know what? He said, Mrs. Collins, the proof of the pudding's in the eating thereof. Your child is well.
Amen. Amen. Praise the Lord.
The school superintendent came to me and said, now, since Michael's had this heart trouble, said, let's exempt him from physical education because that we run those boys so hard. I said, no, let him go ahead and take it. He said, well, okay. Well, he did. And at the end of the year, they gave an award for the most physical fit child. Michael got the award. Out of the whole school. Well, of course, he's had some other problems, and he was sick here not long back, and they said, well, it must be his heart. So they did a heart catheterization on him. Said there's not a thing in the world wrong with his heart.
Amen.
The Lord's so good.
Yes,
He's just so
Amen.
good.
Amen.